All right, hello there. The purpose of this short video is just to get you acclimated with the pamphlet. The calculus student reads the newspaper pamphlet. Inside this pamphlet are essentially various statements that actually relate to calculus. Specifically, they relate to increasing, decreasing, and concavity, topics that we studied back in Chapter 4. Now, normally I would just help students get started, and that's what I want to do here. Then you'll find that the rest of the pamphlet is for you to fill out. Let's open it up here to page 1 because ultimately all the statements in this packet will relate back to one of these four graphs. Now, these four graphs each have certain characteristics. As it says, the first one is increasing, which means it'll be going up. But the graph is also concave up. Now, the only way to draw a graph that's increasing and also concave up would be like this. If you look down at the second one, now the graph is decreasing but also concave up, so essentially it's the other half of the parabola. This graph again is decreasing but it's concave up. Looking over here to the right side, we have increasing and concave down. That's going to be a graph that has this general shape, and then decreasing and concave down is sometimes the hardest one for kids to recognize. Decreasing and concave down is going to have this basic shape. Now, when you read through this pamphlet, as you read the statements, I want you to try to picture one of these four graphs. Now, the other thing that's true is that each of these four graphs have statements that involve derivatives. For example, if a graph is increasing, then the first derivative is definitely going to be positive. That's because, again, this is increasing. If it's concave up, then that's a statement about the second derivative, and because it's concave up, that's also going to be positive. A graph that's decreasing is going to have a derivative that, remember, is negative, and but because it's still concave up, this graph is going to be such that double prime is greater than 0. We'll fill out the last few here. Again, increasing is a statement about the first derivative being greater than 0, but concave down now is a statement that the second derivative is less than 0. And once again, decreasing means that the first derivative is less than 0, but because it's concave down, the second derivative is also less than 0. As I'm sure you can tell here, these are the four ways to mix and match increasing, decreasing, and concave up and down. And let me help you just get the idea with reading basically statements, in this case a comic from the newspaper. Here we've got Garfield, who says he's proud to report that he's only gained 1 pound. And looking very proud, but John says, with Garfield, the goal of the diet isn't losing weight, it's slowing down the gain. So what we want to do is we want to interpret John's statement using these statements with derivatives, but also picturing the graph. So if we think about John's statement that the goal isn't losing weight, then the goal isn't that the graph would be decreasing. In other words, that the goal isn't that the derivative is decreasing. In other words, that it's less than 0. The goal, rather, is to slow down the gain. Now, if you think about slowing down the gain, we're talking about a graph that has a particular concavity. So to slow down the gain would be a graph that is actually increasing, but it's, of course, slowing down. In other words, it's concave down. You can refer back to the graph on the other page, which would say that in Garfield's case, he's going to be having a first derivative that's positive. In other words, he's going to be gaining weight, but his second derivative is negative, which, again, he's actually slowing down the amount of gain. Let's take one quick last look here at Shu. Some silly statements about probably a politician pounding the podium. He says the rate of increase is decreasing. So we have something that's a rate that's increasing. A rate that's increasing means that the first derivative is positive. But he says that increase is decreasing, which, again, it's actually Garfield's graph, a graph that is slowing down. So we're looking at something that's concave down, where the double prime is less than 0. If we look at the second panel, the steepness of the decline is leveling. So the steepness of the decline, in other words, the graph is declining. It's going down, so it's going to have a negative derivative. but the decline is leveling, which means that even though it's going down, it's concave up. So we have a double prime that's greater than 0. All right, and then we have some other silly statements, which I won't say on the video what this last panel means, but basically what this guy is saying is a bunch of all right, so here's what we want you to do, and if I didn't say already, this would be the exact same thing you would have done in class. This activity is normally done in class when we have a little bit of time in between topics. So I want you to read the tech sector and the decline of AIDS little headlines, do a very similar thing that we've done, and then move on to practice 1, where you're trying to match A, B, C, D. Finally, practice 2, if you would kindly turn to practice 2, it's at the end of the pamphlet. You're going to make a little headline. Now, I'll share that you can make this headline as true or false as you want it to be, but it needs to be a headline, and that's your first basically bullet point. Your headline will go up here. A headline is sometimes more than a title, but it's not a whole paragraph. After you write the headline, you're going to have to make a graph, and clearly the graph is going to go in this space right here, but you're also going to make statements about the derivative. That's your next bullet point, and those derivative statements, even the second derivative, will go in this spot. The little oval at the bottom is where you're going to give some type of supporting statement. As I shared, this doesn't have to be a big research project, but you have to give a reason why what you're saying would be or could be true. So when you do the last page, please keep it simple and fill in these 4 blocks according to those 4 bullet points. Feel free to refer back to this video if you need to. Otherwise, go ahead and finish up that little pamphlet.